welcome to Think About It. I'm Sylvia Henderson, your host, and I invite you to tune in, take what you see and hear, and, well, think about it. So today we are talking about futuristic but current technology, and more than just the technology. We're going to be talking about virtual reality, but what I kind of called it subtitle, Virtual Reality Making It Real Today, and how it can be used in the workplace and in organizations. And I have two wonderful guests to help talk about it in layman's terms. And so they are Ellie Giles and Ann Zaret. If I said that right?
You did.
Okay. And they are with a company called, and you need to tell me the company because I forgot to write it down.
It is Virtual Apprentice.
Virtual Apprentice. Oh, I did write it down. So I get thrown because I've known Ellie in a past carnation of, and she'll talk maybe real brief how she came from what she was doing to doing virtual reality or Virtual Apprentice as a business. Right. But first of all, welcome, ladies. And so thank you for being my guest.
Thank you for having us.
So we've got a lot to cover in a short time. So I'm going to start right out. Excuse me. Normally I ask the progression path, but first, so that people really get what we're going to be talking about. I'm a sci-fi Star Trek person. So when I first think of virtual reality, I think of movies where the people do these futuristic things and that we can only imagine today, and they the Matrix and all of that great stuff, yet ironically, when I look at Star Trek of yesteryear, I see things today that are common use. So I kind of see what you're working with virtual reality as this is reality, this is real stuff, and it's not secret and mysterious. So you use VR and virtual reality as a training tool. And that's about as in real life as you can get, I think, in organizations. So talk about that, what you do and how you evolve to do what you do, have your company.
Well, virtual reality is an amazing teaching tool. It's just a fabulous, fabulous use of technology and creative content to bring people into the very real-time world of what their tasks are. For example, if you are a crane operator, it's kind of dangerous to learn how to operate a crane. So we start out by bringing the world of the crane operator into the headset, to a virtual reality headset, and the worker carries out the exact same tasks as he would in real life in the virtual world. And it is a wonderful tool because it brings safety into the training process. It's scalable so that not just one person is doing the training, multiple people can be doing it. It can be done over and over and over again to make sure that you've got the task right. And due to its experiential nature of learning, the retention of content is just far superior to the other ways of teaching. And Ellie, do you want to add anything there?
Yeah, I think one of the things that really was exciting for us when we got together to start doing this is that there are certain occupations that has a high demand. And across in our right now in our workforce, we have huge skills gaps, even worse now as we're looking at the job sectors changing due to the COVID-19. But what we found was that, construction, auto areas, IT areas, there's a lot of different jobs where there really is a shortage in the pipeline. And our question was, how do we solve that problem in a rapid way that stays safe and is really authentic to the occupation that people are going to be doing? So why we went with virtual reality was because we saw this as a major problem. How do we help develop skill sets in a way that is going to be much faster and much more authentic to help support the unemployed and the underemployed?
So here's the how did you get here path. So I'm, okay, I've got gray hair. I'm a baby boomer set. I'm not going to make any judgments about any of your ages, but clearly none of us are millennials or Generation Z. So, we're sort of a demographic that if I were on the outside looking in, I go, so how is it that you, A, ladies, because that's not common either in
Right.
technology, and B, past the millennial stage probably, how did you come to do this and really deep dive into this technology? I mean, Ellie, I know you came from workforce development.
Right. So let's first clarify why women and a little bit older than a millennial is critical to what we're doing. One is that women are in touch with their passion. Not that men aren't, but women are very much in touch with their passion. And this is a passion-driven organization. And second, we come with experiences. We know which experiences are relevant and which ones are gaming and maybe fun, but not necessarily relevant, right? So I think bringing women, the woman's perspective that have lived a little, really enhances the product that we have.
I love that answer.
So
go ahead.
So we'll talk a little bit about our path. It was a fun path. So the key word in workforce development right now is apprenticeships. And if you talk about workforce and training, the word apprentice always comes up in that field. And what my frustration was as a CEO of a workforce development entity was it's antiquated. The apprenticeship model hasn't changed since way back in the 1800s. I mean, it's the same way. It takes a long time. There's not a big return on the investment, and yet there's a huge skills gap. So dealing with that for a long time in workforce development. And one day, Ann and her partners from her communications company came to talk to me about virtual reality. And I'll let you finish the story, Ann, because magic happened. It was just magic happened.
Magic did happen. My background is in communications and marketing. And as I was traveling through my life, all the different media have been available to us. And new and emerging media like virtual reality and mixed reality have a very huge place in communications. Too many people have thought for too long that it's strictly a gaming tool. And so when you meet somebody who gets it, magic happens. And so I went out to talk with Ellie about perhaps bringing virtual reality training into her workforce, WorkSource Montgomery world. And Ellie was like, this is much bigger than WorkSource Montgomery. So this is how we got started. And that's why these two women who are not millennials are in this very techie world.
So what is it that you do? I mean, do you actually, without sharing all of your secrets, but what is it you do? I mean, we can picture the goggles and I'm thinking, and watching somebody kind of, do that whole thing as they're trying to follow an immersion experience. And if I'm wrong, say that.
No, that's right.
So what do you do? Do you go out and film the situations? Do you create scenarios? Because there's got to be tons of scenarios.
Yes.
If you do it wrong, this could drop on your head, and you're simulating dropping on the head, but it's not really happening. Just kind of talk about how you make it happen.
The thing that folks think about what you were, talking about the goggles, that's the smallest piece of it. It really is. It's absolutely the smallest piece. The important piece is the content. And there are, as you said, multiple scenarios, and Ellie can go into several of these, but we are working in projects for a BioEyes science project for students that's run by the University of Pennsylvania. We're working on a piece to develop OSHA training for construction industry. One of the pieces that we're very excited that we're working on right now is COVID related. And Ellie, you want to tell a little bit more about the PPE project?
Yeah. So we have applied and we'll be hearing soon about a grant that teaches through virtual reality how to put on, don, and take off doff PPE in their proper order. Everywhere you go now, I mean, we're focusing on healthcare, but just guess what? In the last month, PPE is going to now be a tool in a lot of occupations. And if you don't know how to put it on and take it off at risk of contamination, you're sort of wasting the materials there. So we're coming up with a video to talk about PPE, the bio eyes, and bringing the biology and that experience is really because how can you do labs anymore with social distancing? And even if you are doing labs with kids, you're going to have to do it in a much more limited way. So how do you then mimic that experience? If you are learning about fish, you need to be in with the fish. So, what are we doing? We're bringing the learning environment to the people's living room. That's really what we're doing. And we're making, and the cool thing about virtual reality is it looks like you're in the real world. So you talk about the crane. We actually piloted this. We had somebody who is a crane instructor put on the goggles and said, well, I'm on the top of a crane every day and I got a little dizzy up there. She's sitting in a chair in our office, right? So it's a very authentic kind of environment. And then you can try everything that you need to do and you can practice it. And the virtual reality gives you that chance to really become, an expert in what you're working with and totally mitigates the risk. And the opportunities for training is endless. It started in healthcare, but we are looking at bringing this to the everyday person. So bringing it to construction, bringing it to auto technology, bringing it to beginning IT, bringing it to the classrooms. There's just so many areas of instruction that we really see this as beneficial.
How do I get started with this, and what do I need to consider? Because I know training design, training development, there are models to figure out what the outcomes should be, and based on those outcomes, what I want people to do in the classroom or in training, and how do I integrate experiential learning in that? I know you go through all that, but what else do I, as the lay manager, need to determine in order to engage you and make this happen? So I'm going to stop here, actually, and then we'll have about a minute longer when we come back from the break. Okay. So if that's okay with you, then stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back. Hi, and welcome back to Think About It. I'm still Sylvia Henderson, your host, and we are still talking about virtual reality made real in the workplace and organizations, and made real primarily for apprenticeships and beyond. So you had to have been on the first half to really get what we're talking about now. My guests are still Ellie, Giles, and Ann Zaret with Virtual Apprentice, the name of the company. So let's continue talking. Before the break, I kind of seeded the second half by saying, let's get real. If I'm a manager, if I'm a decision maker in learning and development or talent development or chief people manager, all those weird terms that now exist, what are the things that I need to be thinking about and asking you to do when I approach you?
I'll start, Ann, and I'll let you finish. I think you need to start by knowing what your training needs are. So we start by saying, okay, we're company will come to us and say, we really need to accelerate the pipeline for HAVC. And so, but what is it that we're looking for? Well, we really want this, but we want somebody who also has some computer knowledge so that they can be using diagnostics or whatever. So we sit down and work through what is the authentic learning you want to have covered in the platform. What is it that you really want to know that your employees future employees can do, which is very different than a book knowledge. So one of the things we look at is taking the content, technical content, and merging it very much with the essential workplace skills, so that you're really getting both and have an opportunity to try to utilize both of those within that virtual reality. You want to add to that, Ann?
Yeah, I think the most important part of the client, you, Mr. Manager, Mrs. Manager, the most important thing that you can do is make available to us, or whoever your virtual reality developer might be, your subject matter experts. It's really, really critical that we work hand in hand. We work out a storyboard with the subject matter experts, and we tweak the storyboard. From there, we then create the script and tweak the script. And then the actual development is a very, very iterative process. So we have you reviewing video after video after video until we get to the point where we're like, okay, we've got it now. And so it's a very, very mutual hand-in-hand kind of process.
So a good example of that is on our website, we have a prototype, just a tire change prototype.
Today, we will be working on changing a tire. All of the tools you will need should be kept in the work area indicated on the floor. Using your controller, you will select each tool by pointing at it.
And one of the reasons we did that is because individuals who are auto technicians, that's a big field still. But one of the challenges we found when we talked with the employers was that there's a lot of people who like cars, but maybe don't have a disposition for fixing cars. So doing a quick prototype with the tire change is a way to say, okay, how is that processing? Is that sequence confusing? Is there some natural disposition towards cars? And the subject matter expert piece, the reason I was sharing that is because, we based on our experiences, we've all changed tires. However, here's a generation input. The new cars come with a chip in the tire that lets you know if it starts to lose air, right? So when you put a tire on and you take a tire off, you need to be careful of that chipping, right? So this was something that when we went back to the subject matter experts, they said, make sure that that's something that you're considering as you're developing this prototype. It was and something you just don't think about. So critical to have people who are in the field that we so much want this to be an authentic training. That's a very critical part of the subject matter experts.
So because you're teaching, you're helping people go through safety procedures. So how do you film the bad safety stuff without people getting hurt, or is that a secret?
Well, you don't ideally go out to film the bad safety stuff. But it's one of the things that we're doing right now as we're developing the PPE donning and doffing program is you want to make sure you're doing it in the right sequence. What we'll do is we will stop once you make a mistake, we'll stop and we'll discuss, make it clear what the dangers are if you were not to do this in the proper sequence and in the proper manner, that type of thing.
We also can use 360 photography, which we use a lot. So you're in their world, and then, take a look around. What safety issues do you see to anticipate before you even get started in the training? So the goal is to be as positive as possible, but so the safety issues are lack of sequence, or skipping over a step, or making sure that you're using your technical knowledge in the proper order to stay safe.
Yeah, when you said that 360 view, it's like that actually has even been more recognizable, because on your iPhones or on your Androids, you can stand there and you can just kind of go all the way around and do a 360, and suddenly, my gosh, I can see later the things that were behind me and in front of me, and that's just with my simple phone. So it's amazing how technology has advanced.
Yeah.
So I'm picturing the complex behaviors, the complex skills, the complex outcomes for virtual reality. How about I'm going to call it the mundane skills. I'm a leader, or I'm a manager with emerging leaders, and I want to teach them the communication skills, the how to run a meeting, the how to be a good manager, those kinds of skills. Can you put them to your applications?
Yep. So enter avatars. And I'm going to let Ann talk a little bit about another project that we were working on with for teachers understanding how to be empathetic towards individuals with special needs. You want to talk?
Yeah, we call that Special XR. And it's challenging for teachers in inclusive classrooms, although they're not in classrooms today, but most of the time when they're in their inclusive classrooms, for teachers to necessarily understand and relate to their students that have special needs. And rather than seeing the kid as as a behavior problem, the teachers can we try to help them understand why a child is acting this way, develop empathy for that child, create a better teacher-student relationship, and thus have a better learning outcome. So our program puts the teacher in the place of Michael, who is a third grade student with ADHD, who has been diagnosed with ADHD. And so it's very, very interesting because you watch the teacher. We have a real human being as the teacher working inside our 3D modeled classroom with 3D avatar students. And she interacts with Michael, who is an avatar. And it's been very, very effective. We created the program and the content and the concept with a group of special educators. So it's still in development, but we're pretty excited about it.
And as the user, you are seeing and experiencing what Michael is experiencing.
Right.
So that you can understand why a certain kind of direction might be misinterpreted, or what is distracting. Though the wind blows, and to the teacher, you hear the wind blow. To the student, you almost see the trees coming in front of your face because it's so distracting. So it helps build empathy. We've also seen, and as you're talking about effective communication, you can also bring in avatars to set up interviews.
Mm-hmm.
We actually we haven't done it yet, but we've been talking this week. What a great format for contact tracing, because you need to be extremely empathetic with that. And that's another use where you can practice in a VR, and it's a sensitive thing if you know that somebody you're interacting with may have been exposed to be sick, and you're calling them to say that. You don't want to blow that. You want to practice that a couple times before you make that that response. And so that's another area where you can really practice your effective communication skills.
Wow. You've got me throwing back now to the old, I used to experience the old thing called Second Life, which was an immersion into VR world way back gaming, but still, and you're literally walking through. Actually, I just saw meetings application not long ago that kind of employs that same concept of scheduling the meeting in this virtual environment, and the people arrive in their avatars and they run the meeting. I was like, whoa, okay, so
yeah.
So, and you mentioned something earlier, maybe just as we were talking on the outside of here about social distancing and how this is even more appropriate in the social distancing of the future. Because let's face it, we're going to have a hybrid work environment as we move forward, no matter what. Talk about that briefly. How being immersed in your own world, so to speak, helps with social distancing.
Well, it's first of all, it's a safety measure. You're not exposed to anybody, not even 6 feet, not, so it's a safety measure in that regard. But it's rather than being, I think you were talking about, doesn't this make us even more socially, distant and isolated? It doesn't, because it's immersing you in the world that you need to be in. It immerses you in the world of your classroom, or it immerses you in the world of your workplace, and it connects you to those places.
Right. And it connects you to other people who share those experiences.
Right.
So from that perspective, you're not going to be able to be on the top of a crane or be on a construction site and learn where you've got somebody standing over you as a mentor. That's going to be a challenging environment right now. So as several people take the same course through the VR and then share their experiences that way through either, through a Zoom call or a conference call, you're actually being able to create better connections than you could if you were just doing it from a flat description.
Gosh, this topic is just so fascinating to me, and we're about out of time. So let me allow you to make your, I call it shameless self-promotion. How do people reach you and get to engage with you? And then let's end with what's the most important 30-second message you want to leave viewers with when we close out.
Okay. Why don't you do the contact to start with, Ann?
Well, we are Virtual Apprentice, and you can find us online at virtualapprentice.net. Our offices are in Bethesda when we're going to be working in our offices again, but we are always available online. And I think I just have to share one thing that I think is kind of fun. My brother-in-law is a brilliant scientist, and he's very, very reflective. And out of the blue on a Zoom family chat the other night, he goes, "Ann, this is your time. This is your time." So I think that's hopefully where we are.
Cool. And Ellie, quick.
So my quick 30 seconds is be in the game, don't play the game. So virtual reality puts you in the game. So that's my 30-second to remember.
Man, that's a tweetable thing to say.
There you go.
I love that. Listen, thank you, Ann and Ellie, for being my guest today. And I think there'll be some things to ask you about later too, off interviews. So
we're looking forward to it, and also we love to be able to provide demonstrations to anybody when the time is right. So we've got we want to have people come to the office and really give it a shot. It's really awesome.
Yeah, I'll be there. I know. I've been saying that earlier.
Yep.
So with that, to the viewers, hope you enjoyed this episode and learned some things from it. Please reach out to these ladies to engage in their services, because this whole experiential learning aspect is near and dear to my heart as a trainer and as a presenter. So with that, thanks for joining, and I invite you to tune in, take what you see and hear, and, well, think about it. Most of all, be safe and make a great day.